The movie begins with four friends traveling together in a car in Iran. They are laughing and talking when suddenly they come under attack. Tragically, Miriam and the driver are killed in the attack. Rescuers arrive to save the survivors from the ambush. Thomas was watching the news in his apartment before making a call to Dutchman, discussing the tense situation in Georgia. Dutchman urges Thomas to join him, highlighting the dangers and instability in the region. Thomas expresses frustration at his inability to secure insurance due to his reputation, but Dutchman encourages him to obtain the necessary documentation and join him regardless. The president receives intelligence indicating that separatists are firing from Russian positions, potentially cooperating with Russian peacekeepers. This raises concerns of wider hostilities, reminiscent of past conflicts. Russian fighter planes, tanks, and a fleet in the Black Sea are mobilizing towards the conflict zone. Despite diplomatic efforts, the Ossetians are uncooperative. The president orders all ministers back and instructs no immediate response to the provocations, hoping to avoid war. Thomas, Sebastian, Zoe, Dutchman, and Stilton are drinking and discussing their experiences in various war-torn countries, including Bosnia and Rwanda. Stilton mentions and jokes about the challenges of finding toilet paper in Tajikistan. They discuss their plans, including contacting Captain Aveliani for leads, and Sebastian mentions he is headed to Tskhinvali, the separatist capital. Thomas and Sebastian got in a car to leave, but Sebastian got sick, and Thomas stopped and they both got out of the car. The both attended a wedding where they heard the president announce a unilateral ceasefire in response to escalating tensions in the region. They went out and they witnessed the Sukhoi jets overhead. The friends are stunned as the wedding venue was suddenly bombed, causing widespread devastation and casualties among the guests. Thomas expresses frustration to Karen about the lack of media coverage and bias in reporting on the conflict in South Ossetia. Despite attempts to highlight the truth, the mainstream media is preoccupied with the Olympics and largely adheres to the Kremlin's narrative. Then Karen saw Putin's speech from Beijing, portraying Russia as a victim and threatening consequences for those opposing its actions. Thomas and Sebastian, desperate to get the story, sent Zoe to the soldiers, and she tried to seduce one of them. Tatia, speaking to Thomas, expresses gratitude for their assistance in reaching the capital amidst the conflict. She acknowledges the tension within her family, particularly concerning her Ossetian heritage and strained relationship with her father, and told him she was emotional from the wedding being ruined. The president announces a dire situation. Georgian forces are under massive attack by Russian forces who have seized control of Tskhinvali. He calls upon allies in the West for support and declares a universal mobilization, urging all reserve officers to report in. The address reflects the gravity of the conflict and the urgency of the situation facing Georgia. Thomas, Sebastian, and Tatia talked with the soldiers. Thomas went to ride with the and inside the car. One soldier briefed him on the situation at the front. He mentioned that not only were the Russians advancing, but there were also volunteer militia and mercenaries, aiding them in cleansing villages. He warned them about men with white armbands and black masks, advising them to not take pictures or attempt to hide, but to run if they encounter them. Following them, Sebastian and Tatia discuss Thomas's demeanor. Sebastian reassures Tatia that Thomas means well despite his difficulty in connecting with people due to his past experiences in Iraq and elsewhere. He emphasized that Thomas cares about Sebastian and his family and only wants to ensure their safety. As they arrived in the village and inquired about Sophie, a woman directed them to an address where the bride and her father were staying. Upon reaching the location, they found Sophie and her father. However, their reunion was abruptly interrupted by jets overhead, signaling an imminent bombing. Sebastian quickly suggested that they seek shelter to protect themselves from the impending danger. Thomas was standing out as when he noticed armed individuals approaching. He rushed inside to alert the others. Sensing imminent danger, they decided to hide and eventually fled the house. Thomas and Sebastian, determined to document the unfolding events, cautiously approached the scene and began recording as the armed group killed 2 individuals. Subsequently, they engaged in a firefight with the remaining assailants, ultimately eliminating all of them in the village. They hid, and the soldiers heard a baby crying and caught them. The terrorist group found their camera and asked for the password to check what was inside, but all they found was a wedding video. The president expresses frustration over the lack of progress in negotiations, particularly with the Americans and Russians showing disinterest in the ceasefire proposal. He sarcastically remarks about the EU's decision for an emergency meeting, emphasizing the urgency of action on the ground rather than more discussions. The president insists that EU representatives must physically stand with them in Georgia rather than convening more meetings elsewhere. Thomas asked Sebastian what he did with the real card. Sebastian explained that he buried it in the ground where he fell after being hit. He also mentioned that he swapped the cards in the orchard and told him they needed to get the footage out. The people started taking them one by one for an interview. They took Tatia's father first, and then they took Sebastian and Thomas. Thomas was taken to the leader, and he asked to play chess with him. The guy started talking about Thomas's past. Tatia asked her father what he told them, and he revealed that he told them they recorded a video of them killing those people. Sebastian and Thomas were about to be tortured into talking when the Georgian army led by Rezo, who saved them back in Iraq, invaded the place to save them. They managed to escape, but they faced fire from the terrorists. In retaliation, they fought back. They got into a car and drove away, with the enemy following closely behind. Thomas decided to meet them at the next stop and jumped from the car to retrieve the memory card that Sebastian had hidden. He obtained the memory card and caught up with them, jumping back into the car. Then they saw Tatia's father coming with 2 soldiers, and Sophie stood up, but she got shot and fell from the car. The president decided to cease fire because Medvedev has rejected new peace proposals, refusing all parts of them. He informed Sarkozy that Russia has its own demands, which will be sent over tomorrow. In response, he was reinstating a unilateral ceasefire. All their troops are to cease fire and fall back to Tbilisi. Sebastian and the others are walking along with the soldiers. They rested in the woods, gathered around a fire. Sebastian is eager to get the footage out, but they were being slowed down in order to avoid walking on the streets. When they got out to the road, they saw soldiers leaving. When they asked what was happening, one soldier told them the president gave orders to them to leave the city. Rezo decided to go to the city, saying he is not going to leave his country behind. They got into the city, and Rezo told them they must leave them there to prepare for a defense, and told them to leave as soon as they finished their task there. Sebastian, Thomas, and Tatia went to the broadcasting station to upload their recording, but the door was locked. Thomas urgently contacted Karen to inform her about the situation in Gori. Despite the bombings, he emphasized the need to upload footage of the executions they witnessed in a village. Karen promised to reach out to Roger McTierney, hoping he could help get the footage aired. She called him back and told him Roger refused to do it. They decided to leave and got out. They found Dutchman, and he had an upload vehicle, and they all decided to head up, but Thomas decided to drop Tatia in a church. As they were going to the vehicle, they saw Zoe with the soldiers and taking pictures of the war. They started uploading, but a helicopter targeted the vehicle and blew it. Rezo targeted the helicopter and blew it. Sebastian, wounded and unable to move, urged Thomas to leave him behind rather than slowing him down. As the Russian terrorist army closed in, Thomas departed with the memory card, leaving Sebastian behind. Returning to the church, Thomas discovers that Tatia has been kidnapped, and the kidnappers leave a contact number. He calls them, and they demand that he bring the memory card as ransom for Tatia's release. Thomas arrived with the memory card and pleaded for Tatia's release. She rushed to him, asking if they had uploaded the footage, but he regretfully informed her that they hadn't. Thomas expressed a desire to have gotten to know Tatia better. Before she could ask further, he urged her to run for safety. Thomas then approached the man and handed over the memory card. However, upon inserting it, they discovered that the footage was missing. Thomas told the man that they had missed a card during their search in Avnevi. He revealed that the real memory card was on its WSI to a human rights group. The man pointed his gun at him, but he was shot by one of his own soldiers. Thomas ran from the scene and saw Tatia sitting. She came running to him and they kissed. He told her he wanted to see Sebastian one last time, but he wasn't there. Thomas and Tatia went to Rezo and Zoe called him out. Then there he saw Sebastian laying in the back of a van. He told Thomas he played dead, and that is how he survived. As they prepared to depart with the soldiers, the enemy forces suddenly appeared. Realizing they were outnumbered, they chose not to fight back. Surprisingly, the leader of the enemy group allowed them to leave unharmed. Noting the significant loss of life already, the president delivered a powerful speech, acknowledging the formidable forces of occupation gathering at their borders. Despite the enemy's vast arsenal of tanks and planes, he emphasized that Georgia possessed something far more valuable, a deep-seated love for freedom and independence. Standing united as a proud, independent nation, he drew parallels to the struggles of other nations like Finland, Czech Republic, and Hungary, definitely declaring that freedom would not back down nor surrender. He highlighted the solidarity of 6 European presidents who had braved fear and threats to stand with Georgia. The president concluded with a resounding affirmation, "May God bless the Georgian people. Long live a free Georgia." Sebastian was told he would make a full recovery in 6 months. Thomas told him that their footage is out and it is getting attention. The movie concludes with a poignant series of testimonials from Georgian citizens who have tragically lost family members during the conflict. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.